everyone and welcome to another video. Today we have day 3 of learning animation until I can animate GOJO vs Sukuna. So today what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the animations I did for day 3 and I'm going to explain to you some of the animation information that I have researched and learned. So here it's called 12 Principles of Animation, which I watched in the Becker tutorial channel, and I would suggest that you go watch it yourself if you want to learn it, because what I'm going to say, it's a summarized version and it's not really complete, but if you watch it yourself, it actually teaches a lot of great things. I recommend his channel and this video. So let's begin. What I'm doing in the first one, I saw a lot of people do this in their animation training. What it's supposed to happen is that it's a hammer and it's falling down and then it rolls to the side. As you see, I will draw those parts too. So while you watch me draw the hammer, let's begin with our principles. So the first principle of animation is squash and stretch. If you had seen my first video, you see that I have done the ball animation, which is a ball falling down and jumping off and falling down again. In that animation, I use a stretch and a squash principle. So what is this? So we have a ball, and when it falls down, it pins to the ground kind of, it squashes, and when it jumps up again, it stretches in the direction that it's jumping up. We use this principle to show speed, momentum, weight, and mass. If we give our object more squash and stretch, and it means the object is softer. For example, we might have seen those animations of AI ball videos, and it shows like 10% softness, 20% softness, and when something is squishy, it's usually more liquidy. And when we have less squash and stretch, then it means the object is harder. And when the ball squashes, we narrow it down, but the mass remains the same. For example, if we narrow it down from above, the 2 points in left and right stretch more compared to the first original circle of the ball, because the mass should remain the same. And the squashing action happens the most when the ball or our object hits the ground, when it hits a solid space. As you can see, I used it here in this video. So now here, before going to the second principle, let me explain to you what I'm doing with the hammer. Originally, the hammer was supposed to be straight and then fall down. But I thought to myself that something that is standing straight up wouldn't fall with no reason. And when it wants to fall, it should show some signs of falling down. So I made the hammer go back and forth a few times to make it like it's rolling around its handle, to show that it's near falling. For example, something had pushed it and the handle is losing balance and then falling down. That's what I'm trying to show. First, I wanted the points of the hammer to be a square, but I thought it made no sense, and it does make sense, but usually when it's in a more circular way, it's more animation-like. For example, you have seen it in Disney movies, they're usually circles. But what you just saw me do here to make the hammer show signs of falling down is actually the second principle of animation. It's called anticipation, giving clues. For example, crouching before jumping up. You can't just jump up from your legs. For example, if in real life, when you want to jump up, you have to bend on your knees a little to be able to release more force. That's what you should also do in animation. You can't just show a man standing right up and then he suddenly jumps. That doesn't make sense. You should show the anticipation of it. For example, holding the hand in the air before punching someone, or holding the hand in the air before reaching in your pocket. For example, have you seen in these Disney movies that they do this thing with the hand, circling it in the air before finally punching someone? That shows the anticipation of them. That shows that they want to gather force to be able to punch that person. And before they punch them, you know they're going to punch them because you can see it in the action. That's called anticipation. It makes the action more natural because it doesn't just suddenly happen, and it gives more life to it. Because if the viewers don't see it, they wouldn't understand where it comes from. For example, if you want to do a sudden movement which no one expects, then yes, you should not show the anticipation. But if you have no problem with the audience knowing that it's going to happen, it can actually be a funny thing. You can show a funny anticipation. And also there are levels to this anticipation thing. You can crouch and then jump, or you can warm up before crouching then and then jump. Okay, so back to explaining what's happening with the hammer. And first, I didn't want to draw more, but I thought, why not? While we're at it, let's just do more. I wanted the hammer to then roll and then go back straight on the earth. I mean on the ground. And then go back and straightly lay on the floor. So when it hits the floor, it falls down and then it moves a little right and left until it finally lays straight on the floor. And I know this isn't a comic animation or a manga, but I really wanted to add that boom scene because I don't know, it was cooler. I usually put all of my animations on 10 frames per second. Although I might change it sometimes, but my go-to is that one. Okay, so now before I get into the third principle, let me tell you what I'm doing here. So originally, I saw an example in the video I recommended to you in the beginning of the video, and it was a rabbit jumping out of a hole and then jumping up. It had something to do with explaining what to do with the ears, and I will explain that one in the rest of the video as well. So I tried to start by a rabbit, but I couldn't draw it very well, so I just changed it into a human. So let's begin with principle number 3. Staging the idea. So what does staging the idea clearly actually mean is that when you want to show the main action, you shouldn't show it from a far away camera angle. Or for example, when you have a screen, there's this rule I heard of, not only in animation but also in art and also in photographing, that you turn in your screen into 3 parts and the main event should happen in one of the 1/3 of the screen. And also, your characters shouldn't be facing the camera. For example, if they're doing something, they should be facing what they're doing. And they wouldn't be staring at the camera and breaking the fourth wall or even looking behind them unless someone else comes in behind them and they aren't the main character anymore. And the person who comes in also joins the script. Adding too many things in one scene makes it difficult to understand what's going on. It overlaps with each other, and it would make the audience to have to pause to understand. So it would be more simple if you reduce the number of your characters or what's happening in one scene and give your audience enough time to read the room or read the text. It's really important in what angle you set up your event because they have to give the energy that they are the main event, they are the main character. So for example, if something is happening and the camera focuses on what's happening, the angle is showing the event. The event is the main thing about this scene, is the most important thing. But if the camera is angled towards the character and how they are reacting to this event, and the event is just corner of the screen, the most important thing here is the reaction the character is giving to the event. The event isn't the main thing anymore. The character is the main character and their reaction is the most important event. For example, the reaction of the character to the loss of their friend. You see that in Attack on Titan, when Levi is surrounded by his friends who have turned into Titans, but the camera, instead of focusing on Titans, which are big things and they have been the main antagonists of the series for a long time, it focuses on Levi's reaction because his reaction is the most important part here. So what did I do with this animation of the person jumping? As you see, I used the squash and stretch method. Although a body is not something to be squash and stretch in a lot of ways, it's really hard to show it because the body is not liquidy. But as you see, when he wants to jump, he crouches down, and I would call that, like for example, squashing the body, because we can't narrow it down, but we can make them crouch down. And when they're jumping up, they're straightening their body and stretching their hands. And that is what I do to make a body, which is a solid object, stretch. When you jump, your hands stretch backwards or towards the ground. That's what I did here. Also, when you want to animate something like hair or tail, which moves different from the body itself, the best way to do it is to first animate your main event, your main actions of the character, and then based on what you animated and the body movement, animate the hair later. As you see, I drew my character bald at first and then I added the hair. So as you see here, I drew the person first and then I drew the hair. That made my work a lot of easier. And also, to draw hair or something like tail, it's better to use the straight ahead method, which I will explain in the next principle. Well, alright guys, I also did this animation of eyes squeezing shut, but I accidentally deleted the recording, so you can only see the final results, but you can see the speed of recording of the process on my TikTok account. Follow me there. Okay, so now the fourth principle of animation: straight ahead or pose to pose. This is how we animate our scenes, and this is the format when we use pose to pose, which I mostly use in my animations, or I try to use, but I forget that I have to use pose to pose. We draw the first frame and then the last frame and then the middle frame to see how the animation is going to end up like, to see the process as we are going to follow, because at the end of the animation we have to have reached a certain pose or position. That is, this animation, this method is really useful for scenes of, for example, punching or walking or usually most of the stuff. But then we have a straight ahead, which we draw the frames one by one, and it is used for unexpected movement. A movement where we don't have a movement between, we don't have an exact or certain pose in mind. It can be anything. For example, fire flame or the movement of a hair. You know, when we draw hair, when we animate hair or animate fire, they don't have to, when we animate fire, for example, the flames don't have to end up in a certain way. They have to be messy. They have to move however they like. The same with hair. That's why same with hair. We don't have to end up in a certain position. So we can just draw them each by each to get that messiness and also follow the correct way. Because, and also if we try, and that's why I use a straight ahead in the last animation for the hair, but I used pose to pose for or didn't I use? That's why I used straight hair for the hair in the previous animation. And as I said, it's easier to draw the hair or anything like fire later when you have to do them straight ahead, because they have their own movement. That is kind of irrelevant to the rest of the movement in the story. Okay, so now for this one, I don't have an example in my animations here, and hopefully I will have in the next episodes. But this one is called follow through or overlapping actions. So for example, if we have a cape and then our character, for example Superman, moves with that cape, when Superman himself stops, the cape is still moving. The cape takes longer to stop than Superman himself. So that means with the body moving, the thing might continue moving after the body. That's called follow through. The object moves after the body has already stopped. And also when the object has different timing and movement and drags in different ways compared to the body, that's called overlapping. For example, the farthest point of the cape will start moving the last and it will stop the last. If Superman starts moving, first the beginning of the cape will move and then the furthest point will go upwards to the air, and when he stops, the furthest point will come down at last. So let me give an explanation what I'm doing here. If you remember, in the last episode, day 2, I had this thing with balls that I wanted to make a circular movement as if this ball is moving in a circle. And if you have seen that video, I told you to remember this one because we will go back to it when we are working with colors again. Now I haven't started exactly working with colors yet, but this is the first time the colors would change. What I wanted to do is that I wanted the capacity of the color change with the movement. As you see, we start with white and then we go black and then we go white again. That's what I'm trying to do. So now for the sixth principle. Okay, so this one is called a slow in and a slow out. This means that things don't move with a constant speed all the way. If we move objects with a constant speed, that seems robotic because only robots have perfect speed with each movement. But natural objects like body or whatever else in nature. They are not perfect, so their speed has flaws. It's not consistent. It changes. It slows down. It speeds up. That's why when you're animating something from nature, or you want to give life to your animation, make it more natural, the speed should change. Objects in animation usually start slow, then speed up, and also end slow. It's like a curve motion. And to do that in 2D animation, you start off by drawing your extremes or your keyframes, which are essential, and then draw one between those keyframes, and then another between that one, and then start adding in-betweens only to the one that are closest to the keyframes at the end and the beginning. That makes it slow in the beginning and also slow in the end. Because the more frames you add, the slower and more consistent the animation will be. But if you add less frames, it will be faster. Although this depends on the animation setting and how many frames you have per second. But for example, if the whole animation is on 10 frames per second and you add more frames to the beginning will be slower to the rest of the parts which have less frames. Also guys, so this video is getting a little long and I don't have time to explain all 12 of the principles, so in the next part I will explain the rest of them. I hope you have enjoyed it. I actually liked our episode today. I feel like I'm making progress. By the time this video comes out, I have actually made a lot more progress, and I think soon we will get to start practicing with the stick figures, and I will definitely start using colors in my animation too. So don't forget to stay here to follow our journey, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!